another episode of the M42 Adventures podcast. I am your host, Rick Trimmer, and coming to you today from inside our studio here in Southern Utah. And I'm excited about this one. This one's really a cool, it's just a cool guest that I have idolized and looked up to for a long time. His name is Gregg Godfrey. And if you, the name already probably, many of you recognize, but he started the company Nitro Circus. What did he say? Like 2003, I think is when he started it, something like that. So I'm excited for this conversation. We have been trying to put this together for about a month now. He's canceled a couple times. I had to cancel a couple times. He wanted to do it in person, which I love. I like those a lot more. And so he made time to come here to Southern Utah from Northern Utah, and I'm excited for this conversation. Free Nitro Circus, and we're going to jump into this conversation. Official.
That is how you start. That's how you start it.
That's right. I was to say, so your background is this, right? Filming.
Oh, yeah. When I hear that clap, I almost get anxiety.
Do you?
You're like, oh, let's get started. It's stressful.
Yeah, the stress of it.
The insanity of where we lived at that time. But,
yeah. So anyway, I want to say thanks for making the trip down. We've tried to do this for the last month.
Yeah,
you canceled a little bit. I canceled a little bit.
And I apologize, but for that, I'm just a disorganized hot mess.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah. I'm learning.
So what happened is, how we met. Yeah. He invited me down to his cabin, and I'm a horrible communicator. And he picked up on that real quick. He goes, "You're just like my brother." And I said, "Good. At least you understand. I'm doing my best."
Oh, man. Yeah. So we met. Yeah. Again, you came down to my cabin down here. You brought your whole family.
Yeah. We had a blast. Thank you for
it's
that.
A cool spot, huh?
It's a magical spot.
Isn't it?
There's nothing like it down in Southern Utah. So.
I was just out there. It's been rented so much, but I snuck out there last week for one night, and there was 5 bighorn sheep laying in my driveway.
I saw the photo.
Yeah, and I was like, I love
pretty
it when
magical.
I see them. And then the horses were on the ring. They came all the way up to the house, which I've never seen them do that before. I wasn't there, but they were on the ring. So you came out there.
Yeah. So you invited.
I invited you. You brought 12 others.
Right, but what I'm laughing about is that there was another situation that you set up that was pretty awesome. But man, there's a lot of history with that, and we don't need to get into it. But the helicopter. Yeah. I'm talking Jeremy.
Yeah. I didn't know you guys knew each other.
I've met him, but it was like his stories of taking gold, and I hit him up about it.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Oh good. What did he say?
Goes, yeah.
No way.
I go, "Did you hide money?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Wasn't money."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, it's gold."
Yeah.
He kind of shakes his head.
Yeah.
Imagine that. He's GPSing, flying his heli out on top of buttes.
Yeah.
Landing and burying gold.
Yeah. I heard that he dropped a lot in ponds too. Sunk it in ponds.
He might have.
Which is smart.
The buttes is way cooler.
Yeah.
Who's going to go up there and find it?
Yeah.
Well, you got to be a really good climber 100%. At that point.
Yeah, there's a bunch of helis now. It's so much money in Utah.
Everybody has one.
There's a group of them that, they would. Yeah. I'm sure they went looking.
Yeah. I didn't know you guys. So he flew out. He came out. He actually, it was cool because he came and picked me and my son up at my parents' ranch.
Yeah.
And then we went and flew around Zion for a minute, and then came over and took all the kids on rides. And I didn't realize, with your background, I just assumed you guys, lived in helicopters and side by sides, and which you do a lot.
We did.
But
I did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind buying one day, but it's
let's get one. Let's go in on one. Yeah, because that's what Jeremy says. You gotta partner with somebody, And I was actually going to partner with him, but we travel. I leave here in 2 weeks for 2 more years.
Yeah, it seems like you're on the move a lot.
Yeah, so it's kind of pointless to have a helicopter sitting, in a building.
Is it? Because I'll still be here.
Yeah.
There's options.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine, a guy that taught me how to ride, and he always had helicopters, and so I've always been. When we started filming in the day, there's no drones.
Yeah.
So we shot. We had so many epic shots out of helis, and nobody had really seen that perspective in what we were doing. So we were kind of the pioneers in that. It was fantastic because the pilots were old Vietnam vets.
And so they knew how to. They were not. Those afraid. Guys are crazy.
Well, there was where the airport is. That used to be the old motocross track up top there.
Yeah. Where we used to go drag race in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had the heli, and they were jumping on the motocross track. And this is the very first film I made. I was 24 years old, I think. And I said, you got to get in, get as close as you can. And it was whoever's in motorsports, but there was Ricky Johnson, Jeff Ward, Roger DeCoster. These are a lot like legends in the sport. And we almost killed all the legends because the blades were so close. And Jeff Ward came over to me and he's like, dude, I could feel the wash pushing me off the line. And he goes, you can't get that close. And I said, okay. But the shot was amazing.
That's, like you said, that is where it's progressed with drones and stuff. Back then, that was the real deal.
Yeah.
You try to get a helicopter in there, man. That is.
It was funner. The drones,
was it?
The drones. Yeah, there's an advantage. They get into spots and do things, especially the way these kids fly them nowadays. But like, I don't know if you watch Supercross, but they're inside the stadium and they got these crazy little drone pilots with their whole headset, and they're doing that. But it's such an amazing shot to follow the race, and they do it in NASCAR. They don't do it in football games, but it's like, they've just changed the game.
Yeah, it's amazing. So people who are listening, I'll do an intro to this, but we got Gregg Godfrey in the studio, and I did a little bit of. I've known about you for most of my adult life, with Nitro Circus, and I had told you up there at my cabin, I tried to go see your show in New Zealand. Couldn't get up to Auckland, and then I tried to see it again in Australia. Couldn't get quite,
What year was that?
It would have been like 17 or 16. I can't remember.
So those shows weren't as amazing,
Weren't they?
Yeah. So you didn't miss anything.
Yeah. Well,
But
I
anyway,
wouldn't have had anything. I wouldn't have had anything to compare it to, and from what I was seeing, it was amazing.
The fact that being in New Zealand, isn't that the one place in the world you could live outside of the United States?
Oh, 100%.
The people
It's
are
untouched.
It's untouched. The
Beautiful.
people are nuts.
Yeah.
There's no liability nonsense. And they're all about crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're way cooler than Australians. Sorry, guys. But
Yeah, they are. They're just wilder. They're free.
Yeah.
They seem more free spirited.
Yeah.
So I had known you, from all of that and growing up and watching all your Nitro Circus and stuff like that. And so I went back and I just kind of read your bio, and your highlights, man, are just insane.
Thank you.
I mean, world record holder. How many? I asked you the other day. You have a couple, right?
Yeah, one of them was just broken last year, but
Not the semi jump, right? No,
I don't think anybody's gonna touch that. Who would do that?
England.
Yeah.
You better not touch it, England.
Yeah.
But so you did. The one that really caught my attention when I was reading through it was your. So I actually started my first company. Well, my second company, my first real big company in Tijuana.
What was it?
It was a wood mill.
Oh.
So we
Was it stuff you couldn't do in the U.S.? Is that
no,
what, was it labor?
no,
Was it
yeah,
labor?
yeah. It was just the competitive advantage of labor. We actually got it to a few hundred employees, and it was rock and rolling. And then the recession came and just annihilated it. But
Cool. I didn't know that.
yeah. So, but we had a car in the Baja races. I never did it.
You sponsored?
Yeah, it was literally our mill's car. It was sitting in our factory.
Who was it?
Well, FJM was the name of the business.
Was it Latinos or was it Americans?
Yeah, it was Latino drivers.
Yeah.
Hector Garcia was our driver. I'm sure that's a name that doesn't stand out, right?
Yeah.
There's probably about 1 million of those down there.
They're starting to win everything.
Oh, are they?
But anyway, keep going.
So I'm familiar with it. It was funny because my first experience with the Baja 1000 was I had bought a brand new Dodge Mega Cab, and I put like a huge lift on it, had 40-inch tires, and I had me and my wife. I didn't have kids at the time, and we come down to the Mexico, and they says, "Hey, we're gonna go watch the Baja."
Not a good idea in that truck on those 2-lane roads, but anyway.
Yeah, so they says, "Okay, here we go. We're gonna go out there and watch it." We stopped at Home Depot, bought a little grill. And he says, "Stay with me." And so we start heading out. And I remember we get to this spot and there's just hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" And he says, "We're not going to go through that." So he says, "Stay with me." And we turn and we start driving through yards. I remember I went underneath a clothesline and the clothes are over my. And
Welcome to Baja.
yeah. And we go up the hill and we get on the road and he says, "Okay, Rick, stay right on my bumper." I'm like, "Okay." and it's a dirt road. And so I'm driving, and he gets, a few hundred yards ahead of me, but I could still see him. And I catch up there, and he says, Rick, we are on the course. Stay on my butt. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what in the hell? We're on the track? And he's like, yeah, we got to go. We have to hurry. So we start flying down there, and we get down, and a four-wheeler comes around, and a dirt bike comes around.
Opposite direction or passing you?
Head on.
Oh, you guys are going up the race course.
Up the course.
And that's kind of dangerous.
100%.
What?
And so we get up there, and he says, we got to hurry because right now it's just motorcycles and four-wheelers that don't hurt so bad, but the trophy trucks are going to be coming, and they hurt when you hit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening? So we get up there, we park, we stop, we're hanging out. They're starting to cook some Mexican food. And he says, oh, here comes the trophy trucks. And we look up, and there's like 10 helicopters 15 miles away. And I'm like, what's that? And he says that every big race team has a helicopter that follows them.
Yeah.
And he says, so here they come. And they come by and just clouds of dust. And one car broke down right by us, and they mobbed it. It was so funny, man. It's like coyotes on a cat, just they surround it, and the guy's puking in the front seat, and got motion sickness. But so I've had, long story short, I've had a little bit of an experience with it.
A taste of it.
And for me to read this stat that you have the fastest solo motorcycle time ever in the Baja 1000, right?
Yeah, I did. It got beat. It stood for 17 years. So
that, to me, when I read that, it's like, that is the longest semi jump. That's just big old, balls and craziness.
And a really, really good, bike engineer, I guess,
But that's what I'm saying with the motorcycle one. It's like that showed me who you are, because it's solo. You did all 1,000 miles,
1,300.
Holy cow!
Yeah,
like that. Like when I read that stat, I was like, whoa, that is that to me, because you have people who switch out the cars and switch out the riders, and that is insane to me. Of all the people on Earth,
what was it in?
What?
On a motorcycle.
It was
on a motorcycle,
okay.
Which is even crazier. So we went out there, and Hector says, unfortunately, we had to come to this spot. We didn't have a lot of time to plan, but he says we usually come out and we bring he owned my partner.
Yeah,
he owned 30,000 acres, and the Baja went through it.
Yeah,
and he says if we would have had more time, we usually bring a backhoe out, and the night before the race, we'll dig a jump.
Well, they dig a booby trap.
That's what I mean.
A jump.
It's not a booby trap.
So everybody pre-runs it.
It's like a moat.
And they would sneak out the night before in the dark and dig a jump for entertainment.
Horrible.
There's cows. There's cows on the road. There's sheep.
Well, I had a friend killed in 2014. Kurt Caselli. He hit I think it was a donkey. And he was.
Man.
KTM was going for the overall win. The 4-man team. He's just flying. He's ahead. It's dusk. Yeah. He cut his femoral artery on his leg, and it kind of flipped him over into the bushes, and he bled out.
That's
8
so
minutes.
fast. Yeah, it can happen in 4 depending on how bad the cut is.
But the point being is, there's animals.
Yeah.
There's people, and Hector.
Yeah, Hector.
Damn, Hector.
Because
100%. The year I did that, I probably hit at least 200 booby traps. On the way down, but you get smart, It's like
you see where they park.
Well, yeah, you see the people in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, all right, there's something.
Well, and the crazy thing is some of the worst wrecks I've ever seen, from footage of races like that, any kind of Baja race on bikes, is when they end up casing themselves, mashing through the middle of the desert, on some kind of ditch or something dug out, something similar to a booby trap, and it just annihilates them.
Oh yeah,
just because they're going
because you're going. At times you're going 80. What are you going?
Well, the bike I was on would tap out at 115.
Oh, man.
But there's your average speed I think is 35 miles an hour. But there was a lot of times that I was everything that bike had going for it.
So, I read that and I was like, whoa, you are a beast. That is something.
Not anymore.
And I wouldn't be anymore. That's the thing. Those are what you do when you're younger, right? But that was when I read that stat and knowing the little bit I know about the Baja, there was a movie out that they used to love. It was some score show.
Was it
Run.
Dust to Glory?
Yeah.
That's what inspired us to go do the solo.
We
Travis
watched
and
that
I.
movie with Hector and them 30 times.
It's a great movie.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The way it shows it in the documentary. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. But go watch that.
The first Dust to Glory. Don't worry about the second one.
Oh,
the
I didn't know
first
there was
one.
two. Yeah.
The
It was
second
the
one's
original.
not so good.
But to read that stat and then, starting Nitro Circus, and I want to touch on all these. Obviously, these are big highlight reels, but a lot of this interview that I want to do with you, if you're okay, we haven't talked at all. You just walked into the
I'm okay
studio.
with anything.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm an open book.
Good. I love that. So, started Nitro Circus 2003.
Yep.
So you broke the record, you said 17 years ago?
2007. So it's still.
So after Nitro Circus.
Yeah.
So I read a little bit about you. You went to the U, which I did too. I went up to the U. And I got an accounting degree. You got a film degree, right? We kind of went left and right there.
Yeah.
I was in film school before I went to culinary school.
Yeah.
Where at?
Here at Dixie.
They have an excellent program.
Yeah, they didn't
Excellent.
even have one yet. When I was going.
Oh,
so.
they do now, but yeah.
No, it's good. I like it.
So you, you're from a trucking enterprise, right?
Well, it wasn't. Yeah.
Wasn't it?
When I grew up, it was my dad.
A truck?
Yeah.
A truck and your dad?
It was pretty rough, but
Okay.
yeah, my brother done a good job with it.
So did you always know you wanted to go into film?
Well,
Like what drew you to that? How did you make this? How did you get there?
I mean, it's a long. Yeah, you tell me when you want me to stop.
Yeah,
but,
right.
When I was a kid, one thing I learned, like, I played sports my whole life, but for some reason, I was very artistic about like the way I would approach it and do it, and really unconventional. Didn't matter if it was racing motorcycles, wrestling, football, whatever it was, and I was really interested in I was more interested. I mean, I love to win. I'm super competitive, but I loved entertaining the crowd. So, like in football, back in this is the 80s,
You and not to interrupt you, but you
No, go
loved to be behind the camera entertaining the crowd.
Later, I'll tell you why
Okay,
that.
okay.
But I learned, like, I wasn't really highly skilled, but I was tough. So I realized I was a little guy, but I could hit harder than anybody in football. So that would light the crowd up, and I loved that. So I figured, all right, I'd set up situations where it was just going to light up a guy, so the crowd would go nuts, and it was about entertaining to me. I didn't really necessarily just focus on winning, and then I was wrestling, and wrestled through high school and college. I was a 3-time state champion, and then I went into college, and I bailed out on that when I was over it. But I just learned like certain things of just entertaining. It was always about entertaining and being artistic in a weird way, right? With sports.
Yeah.
But sports are entertaining at a young age, and it was
Extreme sports.
Yeah.
Too. Well, I guess.
I was conventional, but then it was the other, and then I was always drawn to it, and I made a film in high school, which was in those days was really hard, and it was a highlight reel.
How old are you, Greg?
I'm 55.
Okay.
So that was in 1987.
Right. So you're on like one of the, I don't even know what they're called, right?
They just came out.
Did they?
And it was so hard to edit, and there was somebody I knew that had an editing system, and so
It's so interesting that because I don't
I'm
like
trying
that.
to think about how to edit film right now.
That's amazing.
What's that like, clipping?
So you enjoyed that? I
loved it.
That's interesting.
But the thing I loved about it is I was a show off too. So we would make these projects, and then we would, like for a talent assembly or something, we'd show them, and the girls would go crazy. I mean, that worked well.
Win-win.
Oh yeah, it was the high, and I'm like, okay. And then I served a 2-year mission in Italy, which I wasn't like into that, and I changed. I mean, I was out of control kid, and it kind of helped me. Italy was nuts. Those people are crazy, but it was like
Where did you serve in Italy?
Sicily.
Okay.
Oh, nice. That's where my family's from.
I spent.
You're Italian?
Well, yep. My mom's side's Sicilian.
Parli Italiano?
I don't know any Italian.
We spent.
It's funny. I'm part German. Ich bin Ausländer und sprechen nicht Deutsch.
Yeah,
But that's
Yeah, Italy's my top We've been to 71 countries, and I tell everybody it's it's honestly probably number one, but it's hard to.
It's awesome, right?
It's top 3.
I wouldn't want to live there, but
yeah.
Where did you go?
Everywhere. We've road
Did you
trip.
go to Sicily?
Yeah, we spent 6 weeks.
Isn't it beautiful down there?
Absolutely. We
It's
have
a
some
hidden
friends in
gem.
Palermo.
Yeah, wow.
And so
I served in Palermo.
Okay. So yeah, we went and stayed with them for 2 weeks. I actually met them in Croatia. It's a funny. I can go.
That's super cool.
Just jump
We were.
off.
Have you heard of Plitvice Lakes in Croatia? The big waterfalls. There's. You check
heard
it
it's
out.
beautiful,
It's
but-
amazing. But we were there at a camp, and I hadn't talked English for a few months. And a girl, I was parked in their parking spot at its Airbnb, and I walk out and I says, "Hey, sorry, I'm in your spot. I'll move
In
it."
Croatia or Thailand?
Croatia. And I says, "Oh, sorry, you don't speak English. You don't know what I'm saying." She's like, "I'm from Canada."
So
we got
nice
talking.
to hear English.
We got talking, and she married a guy from Palermo, and they says, "Hey, if you guys can reroute, come down and visit us." And so we did. And so we went and stayed with them. They
Awesome.
sent us wedding invitations. We couldn't make it, but
Did they live in an apartment or a house?
they lived in an apartment.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
And
most
so-
people do. That's strange,
yeah,
right?
It's very strange. But I love Italy. I've gone to the same. I told you this, right? The same. There's a little cafe in Tuscany, in San Cassiano, that I've gone to the same little shop 4 times to have the Florentine steak.
Yeah,
I've flown back there thousands of miles. The food.
The food in Italy, the second you cross the border, whatever they say about France, the
100%,
food- France
yeah,
sucks.
100%.
The second you get, even at a truck stop,
Yeah.
the food is
It
so
is.
good.
And my kids, it's easy with kids because they love spaghetti. They love, bread. It's all familiar.
the desserts are
The
amazing.
desserts are amazing. So yeah, Italy. I tell everybody that asks, I'm like, probably Italy's number 1, but I'm just gonna say top 3 because you have New Zealand, you have some that just. But
You don't want to.
Italy's,
Italy's fun to visit, but living there is
it'd be tough. Yeah,
rough.
I would imagine because we get used to our, it's old.
Yeah.
So
It feels like you're living in the 70s or the
it
80s,
does,
which
it
is
does.
kind of cool.
Yeah,
It's
I
different.
loved one of my favorite places was the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah,
Have you been up there?
I went. Yeah, that was
Anyway.
part of it. It was part of our mission, and it went all the
Okay.
way down the boot. So we did all that, and I'd been out of the country a few times, but that blew my mind.
It's such a, I'm not a real religious person. I grew up LDS, never served a mission. But I tell my boys, I'm like, if you ever want to go, I'd 100% support it.
That's awesome.
Even more than just the religious aspect, but like
It's the
you said,
experience.
do your own laundry, be away from mom and dad and serve.
Yeah.
That's
all you're doing, right?
Everywhere I'm at in the world, I've bought probably 50 or 60 lunches. Every time I see a missionary.
Good for
I
you,
bought
man.
them. I bought them 2 or 3 times on Molokai. We'll be on Molokai and they'll come up. There's 3 food trucks, and I'm like, oh, missionaries. I'm like, and
And they love it.
yeah, and
They're
I tell
there's
them,
somebody being nice to us.
Yeah, right?
yeah.
For once.
well, they're away from home
Yeah.
and they're serving,
Yeah.
and I says, listen, I'm not religious, but I 100% commend you kids for doing what you're doing
Yeah.
and coming out here, if nothing else, just to serve.
It doesn't matter if it's military or that, or you're right. Get out of yourself. And at that age, it's kind of ingenious because that's when you're the most selfish.
Yep.
And you get to do that. But
Yeah. So sorry.
but I'm going to tell you about Palermo since you've been there.
Yeah.
So Palermo was, it was like the Dark Knight when I lived there because there was, what I mean by
When were
that,
you there?
It was
like the 90s.
It was 89. So
Okay.
what was going on is there was 2 judges that were tired of the mob. They were just exhausted. They said, we're going after them full bore. So it was war. I mean, the cops were carrying around machine guns and I would hear shots going off and explosions because they're killing the judges. They're trying to blow them up.
Wow.
And so the judges, when they were getting transferred, like in front of their apartment buildings, there's just military and police everywhere. They'd jump in their car and they would, race to wherever they're going. And I didn't understand this at the time, but I started digging into it. And there was a maximum security prison that was the courthouse. So they had these guys in a maximum security prison. They'd build it and they would bring them out, and they're trying to testify and do this whole stuff. And then everybody's just trying to kill them.
Trying to be judges.
Well, they did. Nobody wanted to be a judge. It
But
was-
I mean, they're trying to still judge. They're still trying to run.
exactly.
They're trying to do their job.
Exactly. And so, it was. I just couldn't believe the violence that was going on. And I came out of our apartment one day and I heard the gunshot, and I'm sure it was a mob hit. come around and there's a guy laying there and they blew his head off. And, it's like to see that
at that age.
And you're trying to support these people and they're all living in fear and they're all scared and there's so much heroin. I saw a 14-year-old kid just, and I go over and I grabbed the needle and pulled it out of his arm.
You're like, no.
He didn't like that.
Yeah, interesting.
But it was the violence and the craziness and the people trying to get rid of this iron grip that the mob had. They were so powerful. If the city didn't pay like their whatever they call it, their extortion money, the mob would get in and shut the power off. And then they would shut the water off to make sure that, and it was that the city was just held in an iron grip. And I'd say most of Sicily was. But the worst part, the climactic part of that is we were in our apartment when, I don't know if we were in the apartment or outside, and I just heard this. It seemed like a Hiroshima, a bomb going off. So what they were doing, they couldn't get there's one judge, they couldn't get him. So he was driving out of Palermo. Palermo, you know how it sits in that horseshoe? It's kind of surrounded by mountains. So the freeway goes around like this. And as he came along, they blew the freeway up.
No
and they got him. Look it up.
What in the world were you doing in Palermo at this time? Like, what was this like a
mission.
Documentary? I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know, but it was like I felt totally safe, and
crazy.
we taught the Africans a lot, a lot, and so they were kind of the slaves to the Italians in a way, and so they would work really late. So we would, and they always lived in the craziest part of town because they couldn't afford anything, and we were walking through. I loved it because the excitement. It was all you do is step outside, and there was something crazy going on.
Wild West.
Yeah. So anyway, it was an amazing experience, and since you were in Palermo, Catania wasn't so violent, and the rest of the island.
Have you been back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went. My son and I took. KTM gave us 1290 adventures. We got him up in Mattergoffen. We went down to Erzberg, which is a famous off-road race in Austria that I'd done that 4 times, and I was able to take my son back and show him how nuts this was. And the crazy thing about that is that was Hitler's war machine. So it's called Erzberg because I think it means iron ore. And,
I was gonna say, is it the mine one?
yeah.
Oh my hell, I've seen that. I've
never
we
seen
went
this.
to we actually went
Look
to
it up. It's
the Red
pretty.
Bull Museum there.
Oh yeah, in Salzburg.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that nuts?
Dude,
I gotta see this.
dude, it was so cool. And the town.
He's got MiGs. They got F1 cars.
yeah,
They got
it's unreal. They had like the space chute because
Yeah.
he had jumped out of the balloon for the highest
Yeah.
skydive or whatever. It was just there.
yeah.
But yeah, I've seen that where they're out at a mine
Yeah.
and they're climbing up like mine hills and it's like shell.
Well,
It looks
that's tough.
like you would
but
blow tires every second.
well, you got misses and stuff. But the hard part is the rocks. I mean, and the guys are getting so much better at it. When we did it, we were like the only Americans going over there. It was at the beginning. It was just I and Andy Bell, and anyway, that was my life's just been like that. And so I was able to find adventure was what I cared about, and I was able to.
So that's kind of why you did your mission. You just thought this would be an adventure,
Right.
Like you just said,
and it changed me.
Yeah.
Incredibly. And then I get home, and you get married and stuff, and I'm glad I did that. But we were really young. Trying to raise 3 kids, and I told my wife, I said, when I finished film school, I said, are you down if we move to LA? And the last part of my degree, I talked my professors into letting me do an internship at Disney to qualify for the last quarter, I think last semester of my
Credits.
and they did it. So I was at Disney for 3-4 months, and met everybody. And
What year was this?
94, I think.
94. Okay.
So anyway, I realized I'm not an office guy, because you think you're going to go and be a producer and work in the office. Because I had 3 kids now, I'm not. I don't want to go do the acting thing. I don't want to do the stunt thing. I'd done all that, and so
Yeah, you were a stuntman too.
yeah. That's how I made
I
it.
still think about that sometimes.
That's cool.
And it was easy stuff, I mean, what they consider stunts is to me it was kind of lame, but whatever. They paid me for it, and. So I go down there, and I got a chance to meet Steven Spielberg, and at the time Jeffrey Katzenberg was running the animation. I got to meet him and talk to him. But the most influential guy I met was a guy by the name of Matt Williams, and he was shooting on Disney's lot, and he was he did a show called Home Improvement, and he started the Roseanne show. So at the time, he was the most successful television producer in the world. And for some crazy reason, I end up at this. They started a new show, and they were doing a rap party on it, and we were on Disney's lot, and I saw him, and I went over and I said, "Hey, man," I go, "You talk to me a little bit about how you did what you did." And he sat there and talked to me for an hour and a half, and he gave me the best advice I could have ever gotten. And he said, "You got to write down all your goals." And he goes, "Let it sit, and you'll start to realize that a lot of your goals are stupid, like Ferraris, helicopters, all that stuff." And he goes, "Then you get to the meat of why you're doing it, because it's going to be hell. And you better find out what it is, why you're there in the fight." And I did that. And it made me realize, like, I love narrative filmmaking, but it was kind of lame because it was fake. And I really loved, I felt like when I'd watch a narrative film, like a regular film, there's like this really cool action, and then there's this kind of stupid storytelling in the middle, and then there's really cool action, and then there's this stupid storytelling. And I mean, there are some films like Gladiator that's solid all the way through.
Yeah.
But
Braveheart.
But getting to that point, it was kind of rough. So I thought, well, okay, I'm into the solid action. So at that time, Crusty Demons came out, and my internship ended, and I was scrambling, because my wife and I, we bought a trailer home because we couldn't afford anything. And people think I came from money, but at that time, the trucking company, there was nothing. We had nothing. And so I had $5,000. I went up to the high desert, bought a double wide trailer. There was a massive earthquake in '84, the Northridge earthquake. So everybody's moving out. I'm moving in because I see opportunity. To move all this stuff around. Yeah. And I take this trailer house, and my wife was great to do this, and we lived in a double wide in California.
That's awesome.
But then I met a guy that was the cinematographer on Crusty Demons. And he says, "You got to come to the premiere of this movie." And I think that was in '95. I can't remember exactly.
Isn't that the one with Seth jumping that epic jump?
Yep.
The dunes and
bottoming out, smashing his face in.
Yeah. And they made it fun of it. They didn't get all dramatic. And I'm like, but we went to the party or the premiere of that. And here I am. I got 3 kids. I'm in such a different world than where these guys were. We show up, and they've got strippers everywhere, and there was a girl actually dressed in cellophane. There was another girl that had like
pasties on.
It wasn't even pasties; it was like whipped cream, and it would melt off. And I'm like, I got my wife with me, and we're like, "Oh damn, what are we doing?"
That's awesome.
But when the film came on, it floored me. It was game changing, because these guys were snowboard filmmakers, and there was another film at the time called Whiskey, and Whiskey influenced Jackass, Whiskey influenced Krusty, and it was a bunch of Canadians, but it was just raw. They showed everything, and at the time that just didn't exist. So there was this change going on. I was right in the middle of it. My timing couldn't have been better. But I was like serious, and I was a serious filmmaker. And I did that film with DeCoster and Rick Johnson and those guys just because they were my heroes. That was all it was, and I wanted to learn from them. So we made this thing called Legacy, and I did. Then I made another series called Children of Metal God, and we met Travis at the very end of that, and I fell in love with it. Actually, that's not true. In '96. Pro Taper sent me to the World Mini Grand Prix, and I met Travis, and I met his parents. And I thought, this kid's money.
He hadn't done freestyle then.
It hadn't started yet, but he was going.
You just saw something in him.
Well, at that time, again, it's James Stewart, if you know motocross, and then there's
Bubba,
Ricky Carmichael and Travis, all in this.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're
brands.
Exactly right. Yeah. And then. So I'm watching these kids, and I'm like, man, these kids are amazing. And Travis was his show off. He's always taking his hands off the handlebars.
Yeah, flipping the finish line.
Yeah, well, that was later.
Yeah,
but then he's 14.
Wow.
And he's racing with Carmichael, and he's beating Carmichael. And it's going back and forth. But Travis goes in, and he wins. I think Ricky was a little older, but Travis goes in, and he wins the Supercross National Championship. And then he wins the Outdoor National Championship in 125. And he, you know, I saw something in him that he was too reckless to really compete at the big level. He just hadn't matured enough for it, you know, and whether that's, but he was amazing for what we were doing. Amazing. So when he started crashing a lot, he started getting hurt a lot. I mean, he always did, but this was really bad. It was starting to compound on him. His parents were going through a divorce. It was a tough time. So he started living with us. And
in LA?
No, we had, at that time, so this was like 2001. We'd moved back to Salt Lake.
Okay.
And anyway,
still no Nitro.
No Nitro at this point. And we're talking, and he was just part of the family. You know, he was with my kids, and I'm like, he's such a talent. Like that kid, I don't have talent. He's got talent. And plus he's got balls, plus he has everything, right, for what we're doing. So Suzuki's really pissed at him. We go down and we film at Castillo Ranch. You guys ever seen that shot where he comes up over the edge and blows his knee out?
Oh, yeah. No, I've seen that shot, yeah.
That was at the beginning of the 2001 Supercross season. Oh. There was a week later till Anaheim won.
So he's out.
He's gone. His dad was livid with me. And I said, it wasn't my fault. And he goes, because you're here, he wants to show off, and it is your fault. And anyway, we got into it. Robert and I are fine now, but at the time, we went at it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, we got to really build around TP. Like, I need to. So a friend of mine that I grew up with, he was an attorney, and he at that time kind of came back, and we had it rolling. But he goes, Greg, you just need to get organized because you're such a mess, a hot mess. And so, and Travis was too. And so we just organized it and then created Nitro. And we used to call it Travis and the Nitro Circus.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, the first film came out. So from Krusty to that, it's almost 10 years. It's 7 years. And I'd made, I think, 7 films and done 100 episodes of television at that point. So I was pretty seasoned. And then, Nitro, it just exploded.
Just perfect timing.
Yeah,
and then
really
I know
was.
he came in and did some major, like the double backflip. And I mean, that was probably even later. That was a lot later.
That was 2007. But
not much later then.
But the thing that worked for our advantage was X Games, Red Bull, and we leveraged all of it.
Yeah.
And, they all had a national audience. Red Bull was fantastic, but they caused a lot of problems too of helping us build that company. And I learned a lot from Red Bull. And, spending the time over there in Austria and their world and seeing the way they think and what they were doing, going to the museum, and, they own soccer teams, and getting Travis on Red Bull really helped too, because they'd pay for a lot of stuff. And so anyway, it was just pure insanity when we were shooting and doing things every time we go on set. But I grew up like that. I was okay with it, and I would, and I'd do dumb things too. And anyway, he does the double backflip, and that was the year we did the 1,000. It really caught attention. And then Johnny Knoxville calls and Jeff Tremaine, and they said, hey, what do you guys want to come out and do? Evil had died that year. It was 2008, so it was 1 year later. And do you want me to talk about Baja? Am I rambling too much?
No, I love it.
Good. I like these stories.
Yeah, me too.
So in 2007, Trav goes in and does the double backflip. Okay, he is in the Staples Center in front of 23,000 people. The timing was perfect.
I still remember it. I get
chills thinking about it.
I do too, because he was in that. He was in like a plaid.
Yeah, he looked like a lumberjack.
Yeah, I'm like, who is this kid? Because that's when I kind of stepped in, and I was like, what is he doing? And his mom was like sitting there,
Debbie.
and dude, and he, it was one of those moments that will never be repeated.
Well, and even the hardcore, I think media. Even basketball and football, everybody was there, from every channel. And they were even taken back by this because it was the intensity. It was just nuts. This kid is doing what in the Staples Center? And and the whole rivalry with Deegan, and it just all worked. And Deegan helped us a lot too, because he was the bad guy. Travis was the good guy. Nitro was the good guys. The Metal Militia were the bad guys. And it worked.
Yeah.
And Militia build up, and Nitro build up, and Deegan sitting there watching him, and Twitch and everybody, and they're like, "You can do it, you can do it," But there was no competition at that point. They were all bonded.
Yeah.
And he duck it. I mean, you guys seen the footage, and it was like, what the hell did he just do? You know, like, this is insane. And I don't think people understand how, but his popularity was through the roof.
Yeah.
So that was in August, right? I think August or July. Travis shows up at my house and he goes, "Hey, you want to go Ironman 1,000?" It was a month. And
What does Ironman mean? Solo?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, because of that show you were talking about, Dust to Glory, Mouse McCoy, he was like, nobody really did it. You know, for whatever reason, it was 4-man teams, and it was stupid to Ironman it. We're going to kill ourselves.
Oh, it's insane.
And Mouse does it, and he does, just fine. I think he finished in the top 10, which is amazing as a solo guy. So Travis is like, let's go do it. He goes, I can win it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. Okay. As a solo, right?
Yeah.
He's going to beat the 4-man teams.
Yeah.
So I talked to KTM, and I said, can you give me a bike? And they said, yeah. And they gave me a Works Sport, I think it was a 520, blown out to a 540. Had nice suspension on it. And anyway, we put that together. And KTM didn't really, at that year, they were trying to get into Baja. So they brought all their heavy hitters in. They brought Cyril Dupre over. He's a French guy that won Dakar like 4 times. And they brought in, all their heavy, I can't remember everybody's name, but anyway, they had their 4-man team, and they were premiering.
You're competing against the 4-man team as a
Yes.
solo? It's not a different bracket?
Well, it is, but you're in the same race, So
Yeah.
you're
You're racing each other.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway, KTM put $1 million into supporting their 4-man team. It blows up. They get no publicity, nothing. The bike falls apart. The riders fall apart. They give me the kind of Millennial Falcon that was in pieces.
They buy you lunch?
Yeah. They didn't give me any money.
They give you some per diem for lunch?
Red Bull gave us a couple cases, and
Some stickers.
That's how you survive. Just pound the Red Bull.
what's how Travis? If you look at the footage,
Is that what he's doing?
there's something on YouTube, and he's like gets it. I think at mile marker 500, and the night's coming in, and he's like, Hubert, our mechanic, shows up, and he's like, dude, I gotta have some food. He goes, I can't survive on Red Bull and Snickers. If you see that footage.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And that was real.
Yeah,
That's funny.
And I was smart enough. I realized the guys we'd bought a pit service, and I'd realized that they had food. He just didn't realize it, so I was eating.
Yeah.
And anyway, we go, and I'm watching TP. We were going to ride together, and we rode the first 30 miles, and he gone. He just wasn't. And I'm like, it's 1,300 miles. The race doesn't even start till 1,000 miles.
Typical TP.
Yeah. But
Showing off.
But he was running. He pulled out 2 hours on me, which is amazing. And he pulled, I think he was running in the top 10. And, he's running like it's a 125, 250 national. And I'm like, he's no way he can survive that. So I'm going. And I'm getting to the point. I hadn't slept, had a crazy experience where, we're just flying. And I got a beer can thrown at my head. I eat the booby traps and the fires, and you come into areas and they're burning tires.
Animals, yeah.
I almost hit a deer.
Yeah. Yeah.
A big old buck shows out of nowhere, and he kind of was running with me, and I was just waiting for him to go like this, and cars coming the other way, and donkeys and cows and people.
It is a very unsafe race.
It's an adventure.
Yeah. It's one way to
awesome.
put it. Yeah.
And I just loved, at that time, not stopping.
How old were you?
37.
So, older.
Older. But I was
older.
wiser. All those years, Erzberg, Romania, the desert races, motocross, it was all came to that moment.
Because Travis is what, probably 10 years younger than you? Something like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then...
so youth. Go ahead, youth.
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Tortoise in the hair.
Yeah.
And he goes into a section, and I came up on that section. I've been through there 100 times now. And it was a massive silt bed. And he'd been following a guy, and he couldn't get around him, and he got super, you're frazzled. He's 27 hours into the race right at that point, 1,000-mile marker, and he tries to pass this guy, and he goes into a silt bed, and the bike disappears. It just completely disappears because it's so deep, and then he sucks a bunch of silt into the motor, and that was it. So he told me the bike was so deep, it's like powder snow. He's wading through it. He couldn't find it. And he's trying to get the bike out, and the other guy went around it and took off. But anyway, he's done. And what had happened to me that was the game changer, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was worried the trophy trucks were going to start catching us, and it was after a place called San Ignacio. I'm exhausted. It's 3, 4 in the morning, and I'm seeing things. It's like Dr. Seuss. You're seeing things that aren't there. Your cactus and your lights are bouncing off
talking
things.
to you.
Yeah, your things are running in front of you, and you're like, I'm losing my
Shadow
mind.
monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I keep hearing something, and I'm looking behind me, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And then I'm like going. And this guy, Todd LeDuc, and he was in a Rock Star or something. I think he was racing with Rob McCachran. And I'm going, and he's just, like I'm going 110. He blew by me at 140, 150.
In a truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
And whatever happened, I still don't even know. I mean, he goes by me, and my light quits. The second he goes by me, so I'm just following. I felt like I was floating, and I'm following his lights and trying to slow down. And I slow down, and the truck leaves, and it's just silence. My bike was running. The light went out, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I look over to the side, and there's a guy flashing a light at me. He walks over to me, he's a little Mexican guy, and he's going, and through my Italian.
Was he really there?
He was. He touched me.
Did you touch him?
I'm like, did you take a flashlight?
No. Again, we were so prepared.
Yeah.
But anyway,
This really happened.
Really happened,
Okay.
and he says, "Follow me," and I kind of through our different languages we figure out, and he had his family. And he was camped on the side of the course. He was from a fishing village. He'd moved out there so he could watch the race. So I pulled my bike up, and I'm looking at my watch, and it's like 4:30, whatever. So sunrise is about 6, 7. I can remember. And I told him, I said, "Wake me up when the sun comes up." So I had an hour nap. Made all the difference. Travis is going nonstop, and I get up. And I get going, when the light comes on, I get to my mechanic, and a fuse blew. It was no big deal. We got it going. I get up, and they told me I'm creeping up on TP, and they're saying, and I know he's going to be pissed. He's going to be livid because he's so competitive. And I'm like, I got him. And at that point, there was 35 people in our class, and the next guy in our class was 3 hours behind us.
Wow.
We had pulled weight out. And anyway, I get up to where TP is, and he's gone. He didn't want to wait for me. And then I get into a section. You remember Jesse James, the chopper guy?
Mm-hmm.
He's in a truck, and for some reason, he would, it's a typical thing. He'd blow by me, and it was just he and I, and it was a weird section where it was really narrow.
What year was this?
2007.
God, I saw Jesse James. How many times did he race it?
I don't know, but that year,
Because I started my wood mill in 2006. I might have been there, but go ahead.
Anyway, not to drag it out.
Yeah, I love it.
But we're going back and forth, and he'd break, and his pit crew would race up. I'd pass him, fix him. He'd pass me again. He'd break. Pit crew would come up, fix him. This happened like 3 times, and this was in the last 200 miles of the race. And we came into a section where it's those big Sonora cactuses, and there's nowhere to go, right? So what had happened is you kind of dropped into this gully, and there's all this stuff, and cars were stuck in the course. So he panicked, and he just burrowed through the cactuses. And I'm looking on the top of the hill, and I can see what's going on. And I go, well, God, he just cut a new route.
There you go.
So I pull up next to him, and he's high-centered on the cactus. And I looked at him, and I said, sorry, dude. I go, you need help? And he goes, no, man, go for it. He goes, you're doing good. And so he cut me. I go, thanks. And he cut me a new trail. And anyway, and I at that point, I got into the mountains again, and I thought I was lost. I had a full mental breakdown because I just couldn't manage what was going on. And
You're awake how many hours now?
I was probably 39.
Oh my God.
And
with an hour nap.
Yeah, and I'm so exhausted. My arms are shot.
I can't even imagine.
Oh, I'm still surprised that you guys hold on to this bike for this long.
Cannot.
It was all legs at that point. I'm like, I couldn't. It was throttle and the clutch. And I mean, seriously, I was doing this stuff.
That is unbelievable.
So I come around a corner, and I'm like kind of panicking, and I don't really do that, but it'd take me to that point, and there's a guy that's one of the big teams, one of the big truck teams, and I go, am I on the right track? And he puts his arm around me, and he goes, you got 3 miles. And I almost started bawling, and we start going down. I can see Cabo.
And they knew you were, did he know you were in the lead?
I guess.
Yeah.
You know, he
For
was
him
just,
to respond that way.
yeah.
Like, you got it, man. Go.
yeah, and he did put his arm around me.
That
and
gives me
just-
cold chills.
Yeah, calm me down, and I'm coming into this section, see Cabo, and I'm coming down through, and there's more and more people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, don't break, Mike, don't break. I'm almost there.
Arms stay on.
And it was so rough coming into that section. And I'm like, please. Anyway.
This is crazy.
And I pull up, and there's the Red Bull thing, and I pull through, and I'm like, my guys are there. And I mean, I stink so bad because all the sweat and nastiness, my face is swollen. And I somehow, for some reason, I was chewing on my cheeks, and so I looked like a chipmunk. And I shaved my head because just like, I know I'm going to just suffer. I don't want to deal with my hair. Anyway, I get over there and I cross the finish line, and my guys come up and congratulate me, and some girls come over and try and take a picture with me. Mm-hmm. And I stunk so bad, and they're like, "Oh,
That's so awesome." They're like, "Never mind."
I remember they go, "Oh," and anyway, Sal Fish.
That's what a man smells like.
Yeah, Sal Fish comes up to me, and he goes, puts his arm around me, and he goes, "Wow." He goes, "Dude," he goes, I think you just broke the record, did everything. Like, that's amazing. And anyway, they counted my stuff. And I mean, I wrote I wanted to do that race, and I wanted to know for myself. I wrote every inch of it because everybody cheats in Baja. And I'm like, I wrote every single inch of that race. I didn't wait. And I did it. And so I wanted to be on the finish line and say, I did it the right way. And he just congratulated me, and I was exhausted, and I couldn't wait to rub it in on TP. I couldn't wait.
That's hilarious.
And we go into our thing, and he was shot. I mean, for Travis to be shot, it was a lot, and I was a disaster. And I took my clothes off. And
How much further? When did he break down? What mile marker?
1,000.
So you went another 300, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. So but that last 300 was.
That's the death part.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I mean. So
that was the race. That was the race.
Wow. That's what you tell Travis. All right, let's take a minute and step away from this conversation real quick and talk about something that we have going on. So as many of you know, we launched our online community last year in September. So it's about 120 days old. We have about 130, 140 members now, growing daily. And it is free. So this is a community that has mentors in there. So we have about 10 mentors in there right now who are teaching everything from motorcycles, fitness, finances, travel, help me out, Chase, mental health,
and then we have relationships
hiking,
and family. Yeah, and then we have
self-defense.
Yeah, with Teague. He's
firearms, outdoor cooking, travel. So these are people that are qualified, that we have vetted, that have been doing this for years and years and years in their respective fields, and they are in there teaching us about travel, about self-defense, about firearms, all these things that we have said. And it's not me, it's not my community. I built the structure, but it is professionals that are training me and others in their respective fields, and it is changing lives. I guarantee it. And again, it is free. So come on in. It also gives you the first right of refusal to any of our experiences. We're doing monthly experiences. We're doing 1 day, 3 day, 7 day experiences. You get first right of refusal. And then also we're doing a giveaway. So when we get to 250 members, we are going to be giving away an amazing adventure, which is 2 nights at Elevation 40 Zion, which you can check out, which is an amazing cabin here in southern Utah. It's on social media. And we're going to be doing side-by-side, shooting guns. You're going to be hanging out with me and a couple of the other mentors in the Genesis for the day. You'll get 2 nights there at the cabin, 3 days. And it is going to be an epic, epic adventure. And that is going to be given away free only to members of the Genesis once we hit 250. And it will be completely random. So hopefully we can see you in there. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Please like, share, rate it. And let's get back to this conversation. That's what you tell Travis.
Yeah,
you quit when it got hard, bro.
Yeah, you didn't want to finish. You blew your bike up on purpose.
First 1,000's easy, Travis.
Yeah, there you go. That's a cakewalk.
Yeah.
But then this kid that did it last time, I met him at the finish line, and I was like looking at him, and he didn't even look exhausted or anything. And I was like, did he really ride the whole thing,
Yeah.
And it's easy to switch riders out and cheat, and if you want to, and whatever.
Up in a helicopter for 100 miles.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
So I did it. I know I wrote every second of that. It wasn't for anybody else, and I wanted to show my kids that, like, when you set out to do something, that it wasn't like big news, but to us it was big news.
Yeah.
You know?
That to me, like I said, when I read your Wikipedia page, that stood out to me more than anything.
Yeah.
It did. It's like Nitro Circus. I know I don't want to discredit it. It's amazing, obviously. But that sentence in that Wikipedia, I was like, whoa, that's a different person. That is one of one. Literally one of one.
Yeah.
That is something that I can't say. It's like that is so impressive to me.
Well, thank you.
What a wild. So is that all documented? Is that all?
Well,
did you film that?
Yeah, we did.
Filmmaker Gregg? Because I want to watch that.
It's a weird thing because I mean, kind of like what he was going through. I listened to this guy Alex Honnold talk about. He did free solo. Yeah. So it was during this interview. It was with the company and stuff like that. And he was talking about going up the Half Dome. And he's like, I did El Capitan. He's like, that was cool. And he's like, but one of the scariest things I ever went through, he's like, was climbing up the backside of the Half Dome. And he's like, you're like on it like a frog, and he says he gets up to the top and there's all these tourists and stuff, you know what I mean? And he's like, and I was just so happy to be alive. And it was just like one of those things. He's like, I forget what word he used, but he was just like, I'm so happy that I made it up here. And all these people are just eating lunch. They have no idea that this gentleman just crawled up the backside of the mountain, and it was just like one of those stories where like nobody really like noticed it, and it was all for you and your children and things like that, so it didn't have like that underlying thing. And for him, nobody even knew he did it, but he was so happy about it. Everybody knows he climbed El Capitan, and did it free solo. But nobody really knows that story, and I think it's really neat.
That's what I didn't, like I said, I followed you for a long time, and I know the other stuff, but I didn't know that one. And when I saw that one, I was like, whoa, that to me is the headline.
Yeah.
Because I just know what that would take. I can't even begin to think, but I think I can think. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, dude.
No, you're trying to
I
wrap
raced
your head
because
around
I raced a couple dirt bike races and had dirt
Did
bikes.
you?
Yeah. That's a whole nother story.
Did you race
I read
desert
it
or
in
motocross?
Motocross. And I was in jeans and a wife beater.
Oh, so you've been doing this the
And it
same
was
way the whole time.
horrible.
Every
I ran
sport.
over. They were waving a yellow flag. My buddy's like, we should race tomorrow. And I'm like, sure.
Yeah, let's do that.
You
The
got
guy's waving a yellow
cowboy
flag,
boots.
and I'm like, what does that mean? Is that like final lap?
Yeah.
Like 3 laps? And I come over a hill, and a guy's laying there, and I
Yeah,
ran right.
That's a bad sign.
It was, beginner class. I'm literally on the start gate, and I'm sitting next to the guy, and I says, I'm watching him, and he's like getting all ready, and I'm like, hey, how do you take off? What gear do you use? And he's like, what in the hell?
What are
He's
you
like,
doing?
stay away from me.
And the beginner class is the most dangerous thing
There
you
was
can do in the world.
65 of us. It was in Cedar City, Utah.
Half wreck.
And I wrecked 2 people.
Yep.
I caused 2 people to wreck, and 1 left in an ambulance. And I'm like, this should not be allowed. They should qualify you somehow. When
Yeah,
you show
you
up
just
in when you
show
show up
up.
in Gerbos, ripped Gerbos, and a wife beater, they should be like, you're gonna kill somebody today. Probably yourself. But anyway, the crowd would actually boo me. The
Every
first
time
few
you went
laps, they would boo me.
That's awesome.
And then I kept trying to triple the final, and I didn't dare.
Then you won them over.
And I I have it on video, and I would case, and I'm 6'5".
Well, at least
So-
you got enough.
So I would
out.
come and I'd and then I'd panic at the end, and so I'd case the
off.
triple, and it's a huge jump, and so I just boom, and after that, people were like, I'd come around and they'd cheer me, because I was an idiot.
Yeah, but that's it. That's entertainment.
Yeah,
Right?
well,
Isn't that amazing?
Hunter, I didn't, I think at the time,
Yeah,
probably,
especially because you're in white beaters and t-shirt. You know
yeah,
what I
no
mean?
gear,
Jeans and-
no gear, and came in like 22nd place.
There you go.
But yeah, that so. I want to. I have a lot here, and I'm not getting to it. But I love your stories. But I want to dive into. I think a lot of these conversations are going to be about Nitro Circus and about your Baja and your extreme sports, right? And those are amazing. I'm not taking that away. The ride of Nitro Circus we talked about it a little bit at the cabin. He said those were the best years of your life, all over the world.
It was magical. Well, the
How
best-
long did you do it? You sold it. It's been sold.
I sold it. I had it for 12 years. So we created it. I mean, literally from nothing. Sold it for $20 million, and then but it was at the time. After that, we got it up to 100 million. I still own part of it.
Okay.
But there was a lot of conflict going on,
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Politics and stuff. Yeah.
And it's hard when you build something from scratch and all of a sudden other people. But the guy that was helping us with the live shows was fantastic because he didn't deviate from our mentality. So he extended it. He created a better thing. I mean, it was working beautifully. That's what we were trying to do.
The live show is so smart, because when I saw your videos and your those things are amazing, and the TV shows are amazing, but the live show is like, that is monthly, weekly, consistent around the world. Like Chase said, Nitro Circus is global.
Yeah.
It's not football in America or soccer. It's like, it is a global thing. You guys have gone all over the world, done shows all over the world. Did you go to a lot of them or all of them?
Oh yeah, it was again, it was so special. So there's this story I'll tell you just quick, but
No, you're good.
We did all that, right? So we go into Russia. I grew up in the 80s.
Russia's not safe.
Russia's not safe. Russia's violent. They're our enemy.
Yeah.
We fly into Moscow and we were in the stadium, and I remember watching this because of the I think that it was the Summer Olympics that they did there, and it was I can't remember what year it was. It was it wasn't 84. Anyway, they did the Olympics, right? So they had this crazy, huge, weird communist stadium, and it was so big, but it had a big curtain in the middle.
The Iron Curtain. I've heard of that.
And we did, yeah, exactly.
It was in the stadium.
But we did the show there, and I'm like, it was a rich guy that brought us in there, and I'm like a little nervous because at the time, it was 2014, and Putin was getting crazy again. He was getting ready to invade Ukraine, and my daughter just got her call to Moscow, so we're over there, and we had a massive crowd. There's like 15,000 people, but everywhere we went, there was people following us. And so I went and talked to the mission president over there because, he knew my daughter was showing up. And I said, what's it like? And he goes, it's high. Yeah, I cannot believe they're letting 19-year-old kids, let alone girls, women in there to serve and be alone. I mean, you talk about... And I'm seeing this, and I'm like, my little girl's coming here? Like, I don't know. I'm pretty freaked out about it. And then we get on a train, and we go to St. Petersburg, and that's one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been in. Have you been there?
I have. Again, like you said, I've been to like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Croatia. I've been along the border. But when I was there, I stayed in Riga, I think it is. I stayed in somewhere that was 20 minutes from the border, and we had warnings that were like, because it was when the war was going on with Ukraine.
Always warnings over there.
Yeah, yeah. So they were actually fighting in Ukraine. It was 2 years ago, and it was, So I haven't, but I want to.
Don't go to Moscow. Go to St. Petersburg.
Okay.
But yeah, it's beautiful. But anyway, the fact was, here's my little girl, and she goes over there, and I'm gonna get choked up about it, but she's tough. She knows, she's been traveling, she gets it. And her companion, they go in, they're in Moscow, and they go into an apartment. They're teaching a woman, and the dad shows up. He's drunk, he's pissed off, doesn't want him there. And I guess there was 2 levels of doors. So there's the main door, and then there's another door inside the apartment. And he corners my daughter with a gun and her companion, and he's waving the gun around. Jeez. And my daughter's like, shoot me. I'm so miserable. I don't even care, And she's telling us this.
I hate your country.
Yeah, you guys.
Put me out of my misery.
You guys are rough.
Yeah.
And it's like
How long has she been there?
By this point?
month.
A month.
Whoa.
Wow.
And so, anyway, she just stands him down, and I think it freaked him out because a woman had never, and she just like, shoot me, I don't care. And she walked at him, and then the elders come in, and they, she calls him, and they come in, and they get all this crazy, they get him aside, and she's like, wow, that was at least fun. She's telling us this.
Just like you.
Yeah.
Wanted an adventure.
Yeah, and then the other girl she had to go to counseling, and she was so freaked out by it. My daughter's just like, whatever. Mm-hmm. So then she gets another companion, and they're sitting there one day, and she showed us the video, and it is a violent place, but there's a fight going on, and it's right below her apartment, and the other guy's beating the other guy so bad it split his skull open, killed him. And she's just sitting there watching it, and she's like, these people are nuts, but she's trying to do this. And I'm like, get her out of there. But anyway, she finished it, and it was cool for me to have that opportunity to see that. And we went all through Europe, and we were I mean, here's my 14-year-old son, Chandler, who you met. He's performing. My nephews are performing. They're on these brand new buses. It's like Metallica, you know. We're chaining all through Europe, and they're hitting. You didn't even know where you were. Like, it's day by day. And Mike did a good job of planning this, the guy that was running our tours. And so we would show up, walk in. We had 2 sets that were rotating. It was just like a rock band. Go in, perform, get on the bus. And I actually love the bus. I would rather be on a bus than a plane.
Me too.
Yeah, you jump on the bus, you sleep, you get to the next location. You're right in front of your hotel or the stadium. You go to your hotel or you go to the stadium, practice. And then it's all set up, and you're just leapfrogging through Europe. And so here's my 14-year-old son. His girlfriend flies over, and my sister-in-law is supposed to be watching the kids and taking care of them because I went back to the States. And his girlfriend flies over, and she starts, they dress her up like a boy to get her on the bus. You know, they put her in, and I'm like, you little bastard. But I mean, here's my kids having this.
That's not who he married, is it?
No, but it was Chandler. Yeah. But anyway, it was. They were in every country in Europe, every country except Italy, which is awesome, because I want to be able to take it back into Italy and do that. And yeah, we were in Brussels, and I think that was one of the bigger crowds we had. I think it was like 27,000, and they were psycho. And the show, I mean, Rob Dyrdek says it in one of our movies. He says it's like watching a UFO. That initial show, I remember when I first watched it, I didn't help choreograph the first ones. I mean, we started implementing things into it. I was blown away. Like, Mike did the guy that ran it did an amazing job, and he stayed true to our principles, you know. He basically just took everything from the movies like you're talking about. And then even we did Vegas. We came to the U.S. I think I might have told you this, but this was the smartest thing. We just did it accidentally, but it was the smartest thing we could have done. We built up in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and then we came to the U.S. because that's the market, right? We took 2 years building the hype of it. I mean, we'd done well with the media and all that, but we come into first show we did was in it was Canada, I guess, but we did Ontario, packed.
51st state.
Yeah, kind of.
That's the battle, right?
It was so cold, and then we get on the bus. We go down to, I think it was Boston, and then we do Boston, sold out. And here we are in the garden. I think that's what they call it. You know, you see all the jerseys and everything sold out. We rocked it, and then we go to Madison Square Gardens. I mean, we are in New York. We are there, sold out. Wow. And it was nuts. Wow. But New York sucks. We had to pay almost $500,000 just to get our stuff in there, you know, because the unions and everything. Yeah. But we killed it. Then we go to Philly, knock it out of the park. And then we go to Minneapolis, knock it out of the park. And then at that point, you know, money was flowing like crazy. So we started, what do you call it? Chartering big jets.
Oh, yeah.
Because we didn't have time for the buses to get to the next thing. So, you know, these kids are it's like an NBA team or whatever. We're putting them on these jets and flying them. So the next stop was Salt Lake. And I don't think I went to Minneapolis. I went home and I was doing press. And here we are in Salt Lake, right? And so that was 2013, I believe. It's January or February. We're in the Delta Center, hometown. Whole family's there. You know, everybody we love, care about. Yeah. And we're in the dressing room, and this is 2 hours before the show starts, and you can just hear the raucous crowd going. And then we come out, and we used to introduce it, you know, the Godfrey clan, and, you know, everybody. Travis obviously was the big name, but they'd bring us out, and the stadium just erupted. And it was just such a climactic thing. And I'm telling my kids, I said, look, you guys got to understand, this will never happen again. This is extremely special. That's cool. I think they really embraced it and taught them a lot. And they, you know, I think they all want to get back to that stage somehow in their life, but they at least saw it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to ask, you know, it's like, so the reason I reached out to you initially was I told you your Father's Day video.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Well, I was a chocolate mess in that one.
yeah, but it was, you know, it's like, I can see where your values lie. And I think that's what's cool. That's why I was so excited to interview you. You know, it's like, I love the stuff you've done with the records and the Nitro Circus and stuff like that. But the reason I was excited to interview you is because you're 54, you said? 55. You know, you've been there, you've done that. You're a pioneer. You've lived a life that is so special, right? You're aware of that, I hope. You've done things that people only dream about, you know? And so I have some questions on here and I want to get into some of these, but one of them is, you know, how do you, come off of that? You've been like this NFL player for 15 years, you know, Sundays, man, the stadiums are full. And, you know, what's that like? You know, and I want to, because again, I want to try to transition this well. What's our time at?
We
Chase?
are at 1:16, but I started the recording early, so we're probably at like 1:04.
Okay, so I don't want to take a lot of your time.
Go for it. I'm fine.
I want to know I have several questions here that I want to get into but also with the life you've led. People have heard your stories here so far, and this crazy, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you're a dreamer. I mean, just things that people say but don't do. You know, we're in this world of, you know, I get that as well. Where like I want to travel like you do. You know, and it's like, do it, go do it. And you probably heard this in your life where it's like you got lucky. You know, you were lucky that little Mexican was there with a flashlight.
I did.
And it's like
that was lucky.
Yeah, you were.
But it's like, yeah, maybe that moment was a little bit of luck. But I was the guy that got my boots on that morning, set on a bike,
and I drove
and drove
whatever it was, 800 miles,
800 miles to meet that Mexican. You know, and that's what I think people don't realize is
it's a good analogy.
Yeah, there's some things along the way that can help you. And being in the right moment, you said, you know, you ran into that guy at the studios in LA, you know, it's like, but you packed up your wife and your 3 kids and moved to LA on a dream and lived in a trailer. And, you know, and it's like, people don't ever connect the dots. It's like, I want Gregg Godfrey's life. I want to do what he did. And it's like, okay, here's the manual. Here's what I did. And it's like, well, shit, that's tough. Mm-hmm. I just want the highlights. Yeah. And it's like, you don't get the highlights without the lows. And that's what I don't think people realize. They see people like you and they think, one, it's unachievable. And that's their own problem and their own, you know, faults. Mm. But they also just feel like that you got lucky. They want to kind of take it away, or they want to say the reason I can't get there is not because of me. It's because I wasn't in the right place at the right time. And it's like, man, just hearing your stories. And you have to, there's so many low times, and I guarantee you that you've had 1,000 more low lights. Well, not more, but you've had some. No,
by far the lows are way more than the high times. Yeah.
And I want to talk about this because you said something at my cabin, and we'll touch on this, but you said you have a community, right? And it's about mental health, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And I want to touch on that because that's obviously important to you. And I want to know why. But so let me go through this. So the reason I reached out to you was your Father's Day video. You are, we haven't known each other very long. We've only had a few conversations, but from what I have seen, that's what impressed me more. Is, that's what I'm drawn to. There's lots of people, and I'm sure you know, that have lots of money and can do lots of cool tricks on a bike or a truck. But they're assholes, right? And it's like, but I'm sure you also know the ones that have good hearts and good people, and that's what impresses me about you. And so, but that being said, this life that you've lived, all these crazy things, all this adventure, and we talked about this in the very beginning, but what are you and all these other people? What drives you to do that? What drives Travis Pastrana to want to do a double backflip? What drives you to want to jump a diesel? How far? How far did you get?
160.
What?
He jumped a semi-truck 160 feet. What does that even mean? You know, it's like, but what? But so I'm going to jump around here a little bit because I know we're running long and I don't want to, you know.
No, you go for it.
How fast did you have to go?
We had it, not to interrupt, we had it governed at 87 miles an hour because we figured it out to what it'd be. So it was just pinned. It was in Butte, Montana, in the middle of town. I almost, the kids think I drifted it, but I didn't. Front tire blew out and it spun the truck. Thank goodness, because brakes blew out. Look, if you look at the video, you'll see it. But anyway, go ahead.
So you know, like I have so many questions in here, but like, how do you guys mitigate, or how do you, and not even just, I guess, on the jumps and the, you know, the helicopters and the planes and the bikes, but in business and in all these adventures that you've done, how do you handle and others, the fear, the, you know, the risk of death? Like you said, I'm sure you've lost several friends.
Yeah, never in Nitro,
Right?
but I've lost them to other things.
Yeah, I know one that affected me was Eric Roner, right?
Yeah.
That one, I followed you guys somewhat, but I saw that post or that article or whatever it was at the time, and I read it, and he had his kids and wife, and it really affected me, you know. And obviously, you know, my Instagram is One Life So Live, and that's why I retired early, and that's why I travel, and that's why I try to spend as much time with friends and family as I possibly can, because you get one life. But how do you mitigate? How do you balance that out? And it's such a good question for you, because you're not that guy that just, you know, you have kids, you have a wife. So what is that draws you to take those chances and live that kind of life? And how do you mentally, you know, balance that as far as life and death? Are you still religious?
Yeah. Yeah,
So you have that
much.
you have that comfort of the afterlife?
Yeah. I think that gives me a lot of it's to be, you know, I'll just quickly dive into that, but one of the things within Nitro, even with my kids and my wife and everything, it's like I always had this really good gut sense of when we should and shouldn't. Mm. And I'd always kind of take a moment and think about it. And they'd always look at me and they'd say, "Are we good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." And like, I mean, jumping building to building, like, it's pretty intense, because it's 90 stories up. Something happens, they're dead. It's pass or fail. And, you know, I have to sit there for a second. Everybody looks at me for this. And especially
why do they? Because of your
I think it's the religion. I'm not sure.
It would be for me.
Yeah.
And you're older as well,
probably,
so a little bit more mature.
A little bit of the dad at times, not always, but at times. And then, you know, I would just kind of take a moment. I'd say, "Yeah, we're good. Let's go." Interesting. And then one in particular is when we were shooting our big film, the Nitro 3D thing, we were going so hard. Every day was like life and death, you know. And I live pretty well in that. Travis does extremely well, but I don't think a lot of the other guys do. And so we had if you watch that movie, Jim and Tommy were trying to barrel roll a car, and we just miscalculated. And I'm telling Jim, hit it as fast as you can. I don't know. More speed seems better, but Jim was a little out of his mind, and he hit it way too fast, and it bucked the car, and it didn't spin. So they came down like this, and they didn't build the roll cage hard enough to take impact on the top. So Jim took most of the impact of it, you know, 5,000, 6,000 pound car in his head. He was out. He was in a coma. But it was the middle of filming, you know, and he popped out of the coma in 3 days, and he was fine, but he had a little bleeding on his brain. I think it was an induced coma, but nonetheless, it was very stressful. And we still had to continue the shooting. So there was I think we were doing the bus jump, you know, and we got 7 people in the bus. It was, you know, high consequence. It was funny, but it was high consequence. And then I'm sitting there, and I remember
How do you guys think of these?
You know,
what guy lays awake? Who lays awake and thinks?
We sit in a circle. And,
do you really?
That's where the magic happens. We sit in a circle. People have ideas, and we build off them. It's amazing.
I love it.
But nonetheless, Kurt Nickel comes up to me, who was kind of our general manager, and he's an English guy, and he's looking at me. He goes, "We okay?"
England.
Yeah, he's from
Trucking.
No, he's from England.
Just kidding.
He's a dickhead Brit, but anyway. But he comes over to me and he goes, "Are we okay?" And he was freaking out, and I said, "Yeah, we're good. Let's go. Let's go." But I think with my general thought process through all this is, it's like, look, we take massive chances, which I'm glad we do, and honestly, all it was about was to get our group to a better level in life and teach my children and my extended family that this is how you do it. You know, our family has had a lot of success in a lot of ways. And I think 90% of that is just we have an ability to, it's not scary, it's fun. It's like, don't quit. It's going to suck. You know, grind it out, get through it, figure it out, be smart. You know, understand you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but don't quit. I mean, I had these guys show up at my house, and we had a pretty intimate, it was really bizarre. My son put it together, Chandler. We went up to the mountains, and we built a snow cave, and it's a big YouTube channel called Sea Boys.
Okay.
And they came out, and they were huge Nitro fans, and we slept together in this snow cave. And so it was really like this intimate, and they just quizzed me all night. Like, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? And I said, you guys got an amazing...
How did you do Nitro?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, you guys got an amazing thing going. I said, don't turn on each other and don't quit. It's really that easy. Like when you get a group of people get so contentious, whether it's over fame, whether it's over money, whether it's over this or that. And if you can find ways to resolve problems, you know, in a way that's productive, not contentious, like you cannot be negative. You got to be positive. You've got to look at things in situations, especially, I think, you know, isn't that it, right? No matter it's family, business, whatever, it's always solving problems. So if you can be positive about that and find ways to, yeah, it sucks sometimes. You got to love the grind. I mean, yeah, people see the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But there was 10 years before that.
Well, and you're dealing in your industry, and I'm in construction, you know, before this, but you're dealing.
Construction's rough though, because you're dealing with all these
but I don't
people.
have the person. I don't have the. I'm sure, you know, with I would think with Nitro, you've got a lot of. You got fame.
A lot of egos.
A lot of egos. You know, like I did a 720, you did a 540. You know.
Well, I want more money. That's what it was.
Is it?
About.
Yeah. Always comes down to that. Always comes down to money, doesn't it?
Yep.
So okay. So and then I have some other questions.
Did
here.
I answer anything?
Yeah.
It's kind of a big round.
Well, and my question was kind of around too, but I think, you know, like you said, I find comfort. Again, I was raised religious, but I don't know. You know, I've got to dive more into that. You know, I want that comfort. I want that peace.
It's beautiful because
it would be
like, you know, my wife just went through cancer, and man, but we never wavered. It's like if she dies, you know.
Is she doing better?
Yeah.
Oh,
she had double mastectomy and then they, you know, I'd never done the cancer thing, and they always come back with percentages. It's never a straight answer. So she has, you know, they're saying you're clean, and then all of a sudden we talk to the oncologist and they say, oh yeah, you got to do chemo. We're like, what?
Right. We thought
we thought we were clear, and then, you know, we're just understanding, and then they come back and they say, well, you don't have to do chemo, you got to do this pill, blah blah blah. And then I watched this thing with Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson. Have you seen that where they're talking about cancer and he says these 3 drugs? So I start looking into that, and people are saying that's better than the medical stuff. So, you know, it's their life. So you're trying to understand it, but it uses the same principles, right? Be fearless, be brave,
have faith,
resolve problems. Don't be afraid of death.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's the thing, you know, everybody thinks that with like when I first quit, and I've been traveling about a year, I had a good friend of mine call me up and he's like, hey man, are you okay? Like, yeah, dude, I'm traveling the world. I'm having a blast. And he's like, are you dying? And I'm like, no, what? What's up? Why? And he's like, well, people just don't quit at 36 years old and go leave with their wife and kids and go travel the world. I figured you.
I still don't know why they look at it as quitting.
Yeah, he says, I figured you were dying, you know. And he says, are you afraid to die? And I'm like, I'm not afraid to die, but I just want to
live.
I want to live,
yeah.
You know. But,
And good for you, you know, like. I think what you're doing with your children right now, I mean, I saw it in your son. He's like I say, he's 14.
Yeah, 13.
Yeah, seems like a 20-year-old.
Yeah,
he's very, you know, you're doing a great job with him.
Hayes is different. Hayes is,
that kid.
Hayes, I told you the Africa story.
He was out shooting with us on Saturday. I'm going to take him shooting anytime he wants.
Yeah, just a clown.
It's just a good time.
Yeah, he's funny.
That's great. But look what experiences.
Yeah.
And that changed my kids' lives.
And I will say this as well. I want to comment on that. Your family is beautiful. And I told you that, when I met them, they were all very respectful. Thank you for letting us come here. I mean, I it's like when you do something for somebody, you don't expect it, but it helps.
Yeah.
And they were all very sweet, very down to earth, and you just never know. You never know who you're going to run into or what they're going to be. And you've done a very good job of being a father, and they are very good kids. And just,
Thank you.
Very, very, very respectful. And yeah.
Thank you. And that's all that matters, right?
It is. That's the other thing too, is like you said, I thought it was cool how you said when you were going into the Delta Center, you're old enough and you're wise enough to know this won't last. And I just actually had that conversation with Castle like a week ago. He's starting to. It's funny because he's been thinking about football the last couple of years. And the other day we were driving home, and I says, "What do you think about all day? Like, what's in your thoughts right now?" And he says, "A girl, Autumn." And I'm like, "Whoa, that's new."
Yeah.
How old is he?
13.
Oh, that's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's old.
And I says, "Really? Like what?" And he says, "Well, he says, it's weird, Dad. I'll be driving along like right now, and I think, hey, there's a car. Autumn rides in a car." And I'm like, "Whoa." But he says, I'm having a harder time leaving this time, because we just came home to have a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're leaving for another couple of years. And I says, "Castle, we will never get this back." I says, "Your mommy and daddy playing with you every day, waking up, having this amazing couple, 1 to 2 years, whatever we can get out of this, will never happen again.
Enjoy every minute."
And I says, "I hope that you can understand." I says, "Let's go have a blast. Let's spend time together, because this chapter will close and you'll have the rest of the time with your friends. And I want that, I want you to go to that chapter, but stay here with me for a minute." And so I think it's very good when you're talking to your kids, like I can't imagine, like the Delta Center's roaring, and it's like, be present, because this will not last forever.
Yeah.
And so, again, that kind of takes me into what's next. What's next? I know you kind of said maybe you'll get back into Nitro, right? Maybe something.
No, I want to utilize Nitro because I want to comment on something with your family though. So as you're going through that, right? Too, the other thing you're doing with your kids, and I think you understand this, and I assume that's why you're doing it, but kids are so engrossed in their phone and different things, and they get a little lost, and they don't, it's a different experience. They're experiencing everything through their phone, and they get to experience so much through their phone, but it's not the same. We know that. They can quit anytime they want, which they
Start
do.
over if you die, all these different things.
But what you're doing, this is a physical thing. You're taking them, putting them in a situation where they have to perform, whether it's, you have to learn to get along in those situations because it's difficult. You're dealing with a different country because that's difficult. You're giving them such a broader real life experience, and that's gonna pay massive dividends.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with my family, that was the key because they got to go.
Because Utah's a bubble.
Right,
it is.
It is
as much as anywhere. Utah's a bubble with our religion, and like you're saying, it's. For you to take your kids out there and for them to say, "Oh, that girl's cute. She's from Finland." It's like, "Whoa, there's cute girls in Finland." It's like if you break up with a girl in Utah, remember there's still a cute girl in New Zealand. I tell my kids that all the time. Like, don't get hung up on, this job or this person or this. It's like there's so much to this beautiful world, and it's amazing. It's an amazing ride if you, like you said, put in the effort, and take chances.
Yeah, and you guys are doing it. It is to watch you. It's like I've had friends that have done that, and their kids are just better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that biasly, but that the experience is just better.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're doing it, like you got to be when you're traveling a lot. You got to get ready. You got to move. You got to. There's a pattern.
There is,
and you teach them this
pattern.
We all have our
role.
Work. Yeah. So
Castle's the last one to clear out a Airbnb. He checks the plugs. He checks under the bed. Gina packs bags. I load the car. It's like we have our roles like military, and it just works. And that way, it's not like, "Where's my charger?" And Castle's like, "I got it," because you tell me to double check.
And you're depending on each other.
We're a team.
Yep.
And we were actually in Auckland. We got in one of the biggest fights me and Gina have ever got in. And yelling and screaming. I'm like, "I'm out of here, I'm gone." And I get in my car and drive around, and I'm like, "Where the hell am I going?" I'm in Auckland, New Zealand. It's like 3 a.m. in America. I can't go to my friend's house. I can't call my mom.
You dependent. You have.
I
to
drive around for
depend.
like 3 hours, swallow my pride, walk in. I'm like,
Sorry.
I was an asshole. I'm sorry.
We got to make this work.
Yeah, but it's like that's your.
We're stuck at this point.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot. You know, you're in another country, and it's like this is it. This is who we know.
And you bond. You bond. You take a breath, and your family's tight. Yeah.
I says in McCassel all the time. I says, imagine that I just left you here in Germany and drove away. Imagine that. What that would feel like if us 4 people, 5 now, drove away and just left you in this apartment right now. What would that feel like? And he says, I would panic. You know, I wouldn't know what to do. I don't know how to speak. And I says, exactly. And I would feel the same if you left me, and Mommy would feel the same if we left her.
Great example.
We go together, you know? And so there's a few more things I want to ask you right here. I know it's running long. I know you're busy.
No, I'm okay. I got time.
I'm going to make you late for your next thing.
You guys are the ones.
So what's next? So you haven't answered that. What's next, Greg?
So, okay.
And this, and I, yeah. Do you know?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I took. I'm laughing at that elk.
I know it's too big, bro. It's too big. I tell everybody.
It's a great idea.
You can't see it, but the elk's antlers are up to the ceiling.
Yeah, I actually wanted him to go.
ceiling.
I actually wanted him to go higher, but they hit like
Other stuff
duct work.
that's less easy to drill holes in.
Like put a hole through the ductwork, bro.
It's a massive animal.
Yeah.
So you know, as you go through these processes, right? It's like how I created Nitro. It's exactly going back to that Matt Williams, the guy I met, the big producer, how he taught me this pattern. I go in and I say, all right, I got some time, I got some money. You know, we sold. I want to move in. I was attempting to recreate at one point with my family, kind of the same thing we had with Nitro, because they were like the stars of the Nitro Live, and so we all got together and we were creating the show called Godfrey Clan, and MTV was going to take it over, but which has now become Paramount pretty much. And then all of a sudden there was a big shakeup. They fired everybody that was, you know, the people helping us, so it kind of fell apart. And then, you know, you just kind of reevaluate and you go through these situations. And I watch my kids, they're moving into a different scenario. And I'm like, what do I want to do?
That's a big question. I tell people this, you know, it's like, it's very hard to answer. It is for me, and maybe not for you, but I know I do this often. Like laying in bed, I usually do it at night when it's quiet because there's no outside influence. And I'm like, what do I want to do? And it's like, I want to buy a ranch in Texas. Is what I've been on lately.
That's your new one.
That's my new one. And then I'm like, wait a minute. No, I don't. Like I do.
You think you do.
But not enough to, you know, it's like, wait, is that what I want to do? Or is that what I think I want to do? So how do you come?
It's the list, right? What Matt said. You always list the first things you put up are usually the things you don't need.
I love that.
Then you get to the meat.
Yeah. I'm doing this I'm doing this to show off. I'm doing this to
whatever
impress.
reason.
Yeah. And then it's like, no, I want to travel with my family. And that's it.
At this time, you know, you got an opportunity. I think that's good because you're never going to get it back. But anyway,
yeah.
With that, I looked at companies that I just admire and love. Not necessarily that I want to be that, and it just keeps coming back to Red Bull. I think, you know, when I first saw Red Bull before they were big in the U.S., I went to race Erzberg in 2003, and they took me to Salzburg, and we went through the museum, and they wined and dined us. I was like, who in the hell are these guys? Like, this lifestyle, I feel like I'm in a James Bond movie.
It's unbelievable.
And they were so cool, and there was so much money. And so I'm like, and then I watch, you know, we were involved in helping them in the United States get traction. So we watched all that, at least from the marketing standpoint. And then Monster switched from Hansen's to Monster in like 2004, I think. And the logo, and, you know, Monster's a different brand. I don't really like Monster, but they already had the distribution and everything. And so they come up with this. They just copied Red Bull. They come up with this and, you know, explode. We helped with that. You know, we helped a lot with that. And then I helped, or I'm watching, like, you know, I go meet with the Bucked Up guys, and I'm like watching, and they come to me and they said, we want your athletes and your network and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I met with Evan from Black Rifle Coffee, and talk. He's a cool guy. Have you ever met him? Just
They have the best commercials.
they're so damn funny. It's so irreverent. But now that they're public, they can't do that stuff. So,
Oh no.
yeah, a lot of that changed,
Oh.
which he wishes he wouldn't have done. But nonetheless, same thing. I met Evan in 2016, and I'm like, all right, I got to do this. That world. I know that world. I know how to market that world. I know how to build that world. And then I'm watching Liquid Death, and what they did is amazing.
It's actually good water.
Well, so
Yeah.
everybody teases me because I hated sparkling water. Hated it.
Now
Traveling
you
Europe.
like it because it's Liquid Death?
No, I'd never had it. I'd actually never had it.
Oh,
but
Europe, that's all it is.
Yeah, and I still would be like, this is horrible. This is horrible. And then
You get used to it.
I have 20. It's the Smith's brand. I
Yeah.
don't spend a lot of money, but I have like 20 cases in my fridge right now. In my second.
Now you
fridge.
like it?
Flavored sparkling water.
And I've been
right?
drinking for the last. But it's like I just had the Liquid Death. We were in South Carolina and at an event. And I'm like, what is this? Is this an energy drink? And I'm like,
Really?
and I'm looking at him, and Ryan Mickler was with me, and he's like, it's water.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is water? I'm like, what's in it? Caffeine? And he's like, no, I think it's just water.
No, it's water.
Because I can't have caffeine, it gets my heart going. And
You don't want to die.
yeah. And so I'm reading about it, and I'm like, it is just water. Like, so I don't know much about it. I just saw it like 2 weeks ago.
I'll send you a podcast of the guy that created it. And,
Okay.
and the idea was he's kind of into punk rock, and he's a marketing guy, and the reason I
It's
kind of
just they had a Super Bowl ad.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know
well,
they'd made it that big.
they're $1.4 billion.
They just had a
Dang.
Super Bowl ad, and I says to Gina, that's the water I had. I'm like, how does
I've been
water?
drinking for a few years now.
Oh, is it
feels
that
like.
old?
Yeah, because when it first came out, it was like only at a few stores, and then I started drinking it a little bit, and I just liked it because it comes in a big can, and I don't like plastic.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what
that's
they
one of the
say.
main
They
things.
said, yeah.
And so, it's
It's
just one
genius.
of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny to me, what's so crazy to me is you think, I can't compete in this, I can't compete with energy drinks. I can't compete with water. And then they come in because they know the game.
Well, it's the thing they nailed is it's like, so when you watch, and another, like we were involved with the Skull Candy thing and Stance and Jeff Curl. So the network in Utah, Todd Pedersen and Jeff Curl and Rick Galden. So Rick started Skull Candy. Jeff was part of a fund that came in.
Utah's some hustlers, man.
They
Oh,
are-
yeah.
We
they
are
are.
some
Super salesmen.
hustlers.
There's a network. There's a big
Dude.
network. So anyway, they watched Skull Candy. Rick's a brilliant guy. He took all they're doing, and Rick started this. They find brands or areas where the marketing sucks. It's just blah, right? So he did that in headphones and made it fun and brought in action sports and did all that. He just copied Red Bull's mentality. But then Jeff Curl walks through Walmart and realizes that socks are boring. That's all he did. So they go in and they take all their marketing value from Skull Candy and everything else, and they got the right people involved, and they built Skull Candy up, Stance up, whatever it is, a couple $100 million. But great, and that's all Liquid Death did is they found an area where it's boring.
I have a guy that just did this with dog food.
Oh yeah.
And they got John Legend on board.
Oh, that's cool.
Who's
And
that?
I don't remember his name.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember the guy's name who did it. It's a buddy of mine who invested in it, but I says, why are you investing in that? And he says, because the guy went and found a market that is horrible marketing, but a big market,
Yeah.
and they're running with it. And they got Christy Brink. Is that who he's married to?
Christy Brinkley.
Christy
Somebody.
Anyway, but yeah, that's interesting. So it's like
So-
because like you're saying, if you have the the reason Bucked Up wants to talk to you is because you have what they need or what they want.
Well,
And they have their own.
they're muscleheads,
Yeah.
and their branding's pretty fun and so forth, but they don't have my world.
Yeah.
So
right.
anyway, I'm like, all right, for my own body, I was destroyed. Shattered my pelvis, broke my back. 35 concussions. 45 surgeries. Just even sitting here, I felt.
I say, yeah,
I feel
you
pretty
look good. Yeah, you do look good.
I got to have a replacement on this shoulder and But I was trying to put myself back together, and I realized most of the supplements suck. They suck, and the branding sucks. So we came in, and then my wife's a big yoga person and so forth, and I'm watching There's a couple brands, Relight, which is a local brand out of Heber, and then they're a hydration brand, and then there's another brand. Anyway, I can't remember, but they're boring. They're so boring, but their market's massive. And then I realized with my own body, one of the biggest problems is we're just not hydrated. Like inflammation comes because we're not putting the right stuff into our body. So, inflammation causes most of the pain, right? So I just realized, like in a simple way, put in potassium, magnesium. Magnesium opens up your cells. Potassium goes in, fills it. And then there's other elements that we can put into that. And I start feeling better with my own product. And I look at supplements. They're so boring. So I created, it's pretty fun. I'll show you the branding. And there's definitely an energy component to it. You shouldn't take that one. Yeah. But it's mostly hydration. And I want to create high performance for the body. I think energy drinks suck, and I love their marketing. But I want to create performance for the body that is healthy and good and positive and works for, and it's not bucked up, and it's not muscle heads. We're going after our market. So it's called Nitro Circus. So I'm taking, the whole idea is the mentality of nitro and then just send it, because that's us. Yeah. That's me.
And that's your community, right? Yeah. Isn't that the name of the community? Send it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You got, it's full send, but yeah.
Oh, full send.
But it's like,
I say that at the end of so many things just because it's part of my life of growing up.
Full send.
Yeah, it gets you motivated, right?
Yeah.
So we built these. I just went and got artists because Ken Block used to do this all the time. As he would find for his new liveries on his cars, he'd find artists he loves, and they'd create the new design for his cars. And Ken inspired me a lot. I just went.
That was a sad.
I know, right?
Sad deal.
And I'm
super talented.
I was just at. It was kind of awesome. So last week, you guys ever heard of the Peterson Automotive Museum? Mm-mm. It's down in L.A. and we knew the Peterson. They're very successful publishing family. They did hot rod, motocross, action, dirt bike. Before the internet destroyed all that. So they were billions of dollars, and they used to take us to the ranch. And in L.A. it was pretty awesome because in Wilshire they have this museum that's insane. It's got all these cars from the 20s, 30s, movie cars.
Open to the public?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll check it
So
out.
they did you should, if you're in LA, go.
We're going down. That's where we're starting.
And so Ken's section is huge. And it's got I get chills. Oof. So they just opened it last week. And I see Lucy and the kids and, Ken was a genius. And I was just so inspired by, what he did. All he did is put things same idea, right? Put things that don't belong, put awesome things and things that don't belong and make it art. So take a car, put it in the city, rally the city. Oh, yeah. It's really simple.
I was just watching Grand Tour, the Top Gear guys.
Yeah.
And they did a special on rally cars. And they showed Ken's video where it was his, and it says, look at how well this is done.
Yeah.
And and they literally said they took something that is not exciting, really.
Yeah.
It is, but they said he took it and they made it art. Yeah. And that's exactly what they said on that show. They said he made it beautiful.
And I felt like a lot of the stuff.
The slow motion shots. Yeah. It just, the way they did stuff, the way he thought.
And I felt, Ken was not about getting stupid and crazy, which we are. He's very calculated, but he is kind of nuts, but he's calculated and has to look a certain way. I'm not that. I'm a little bit of white trash, white mess, and I accept that. I grew up in a trucking family, and I love it.
Yeah.
But just watching, and I was just so inspired by that. And then Todd Romano and Robbie Gordon, if you know who those guys are in off road.
I know Robbie.
I can't believe he jumps the stuff he does.
Well, Robbie did the Baja, right? A few times.
He's won it. He's a legend, and so he created a company called Speed UTV. And I went down in Orange County and looked at their thing, and I was so inspired by them. These are just my friends, Yeah. And I'm like, with Nitro Send, we fit into all those categories, and we're going to explode that market. So, with our athletes, and and I want to get more into stick and ball, which I enjoy that stuff. And so we've contacted a couple different athletes. But back to Liquid Death, that they don't do athletes. They're just so disruptive with their media, and because that's where he comes from, and we're good at that. So we're creating, like, there's two sides to it. There's a side with Nitro saying that, look, this is my story. This is the product I used. I was broken up and I fixed myself with this.
It works.
And then there's also this crazy disruptive, some of the videos we're going to launch before we even launch the, do you guys ever see the video? I mean, it's not like Liquid Death stuff's pretty, it's a little bit like Black Rifle. I mean, they go into realms, but some of the better stuff is a little more tame, but funny. It's clever.
Mm-hmm.
Like the waterboarding one. Did you see that one?
I did.
I haven't seen them.
That's the one they launched before they even put product out. And people are like,
I didn't know that was
is this
before
real?
that. Yeah.
What the hell am I watching? Which is genius.
Yeah, no, it is.
Well done.
I'll have to watch it.
Sometimes you don't know what the commercial is about until it's the end.
It's so clever because they say, you know, how many people die? How many kids' hearts blow up from energy drinks? 1,000? You know, how many people, and water's not dangerous? How many people die from avalanches? And they're just funny.
Yeah.
And it's like Black Rifle when Matt Bez gets on there and he makes fun of the liberals.
Oh man, dude,
he's so right to the point, and he's on it, and he's dialed.
Funny.
So anyway, you watch that, and you realize, like, oh man, we've got him. And plus, all those companies I'm talking about, Liquid Death, Stance, a Black Rifle, they're just domestic.
Right. Right.
We're international.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got to go pitch this to the UFC and kind of get them on board with it too, and see how that works. But just 'cause,
I love it.
Yeah, I want to use Nitro as you know,
it's a famous brand. I mean, it's known
to blow it out,
Yeah.
and it makes sense because we're tied to it. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
But whatever, we'll see.
Well, that's who bought you, right? Whoever bought UFC bought Nitro, isn't it?
The short version is we were bought by a massive media company called Rain, and they own most of Hollywood, and it was a pretty sick situation, but we screwed that up. And then we brought this jackass in that from one of those Harvard guys that thinks he knows everything. And when you sell a company, you can't go back in and rearrange the furniture, And so it was hard to watch, but then Dana really believed in it, so he bought it and he gets it,
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Cool.
I love being tied into the UFC.
Oh yeah, me too. What a cool. I love Dana. I love his. I used to follow it a lot, but I like his the way he is. Our beliefs are the same.
Yeah, and
The way he talks.
Yeah, he's straight up.
Yeah, he's straight up.
But and he is that way. But he's a promoter, and then it's going to be a little bit of a road, but nonetheless, we've got our agenda.
Yeah.
Great product. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. I'm going to, like I said, I have so many more questions. I could talk to you forever. I know it maybe sounds cliche or something like that, but it is, it's absolutely amazing what you've done. You probably I hope you hear it all the time, but what you've done, what you do is, I think it's made the world a better place. You've inspired lots of, youth to get out there and get off the screens and go out there and ride bikes and dream big. And so I hope you know how big your impact is. I think you do.
Thank you.
But I want to tell you, I appreciate you coming into the studio, making the time. That's the most important thing we have, right? So
yeah, and I got to say this. Thank you for reaching out and letting us stay in your home.
Yeah.
If you're ever in St. George and you want a rad Airbnb,
Elevation for design.
Just make sure you got a 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, you need it. Yeah, I told you, didn't I?
Yeah, I did. I thought no, we can get up there.
Yeah. Your daughter had trouble, right? Was it your daughter-in-law or daughter? One of them had trouble.
I think it was my daughter. She didn't
have any 4-wheel drive.
Yep, exactly.
Is it people do people refer to it as like the most dangerous driveway?
It's got hashtag I survived the scariest road or something.
Something like that. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, we'll have to get you back out, man. Come back out and bring the wife.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad she's feeling better and she needs to see it.
Yeah,
it's like you said, what I love about it is it's just spiritual. Mm-hmm. You can go out there and sit on that deck and you can't see the world.
I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, it's just so cool. So
yeah, you got everything you need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So appreciate you coming out again.
Thank you.
So people, how do they reach you? What's the way if they want to go to your community?
I think it's the community is a Full Send bullpen, and then the Nitro is Nitro Send. I think it's drinknitrosend.com or just Instagram, Gregg Godfrey. But yeah, it's all about bringing people together. It's all about doing rad things that disrupt and are fun.
Absolutely.
I have to have fun.
Me too. Me too. I'm one of those guys that everybody says, yeah, we actually had a guy in here a couple days ago, and he says, man, I don't know how you travel. I don't know how you do that, dude. I love my routine. I love being at home. And I says, good for you. That's no problem. I mean, that's why,
not what you want.
There's shorter lines when I
give up a lot of stuff to be able to still have fun. You know what I mean? Like there's some things I could do in my life, but I'm like, no, I'm going to keep on having fun.
Well, and what I have a hard time with is routine.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about that. I'm addicted to, I like the
spontaneity.
Yeah, like we're leaving and we're going to just, people ask where we're going. I'm like, we're going to go here and we're going to go there. And it's like, I like the changes and stuff like that. But
me too. And you can be a nomad and still have routine.
Yeah, and that's what I tell them too. Yeah, you can still, we still have our routines on the road, but at the same time, it's in a different location. So
it's always,
Yeah. I can go on forever, man. We probably should have you again on down the road sometime. I want to talk more about your mental health and stuff like that. There was obviously something there that.
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of people that have struggled. I don't feel like,
that's a whole nother thing, but I think that is so important. And I like that you had mentioned that. So we'll talk down the road, but maybe you can come to Hawaii.
Or do something, let's start to hook up and
for sure.
And create
do something fun.
Some rad stuff. So.
Cool, man. All right, brother.
I'm excited.
Okay, man.
Yeah.
All right. So there you have it. It's exactly what I thought it would be. Just an absolutely inspiring individual. My mantra in life, right? My social media is one life, so live. And I live by that. I believe in that wholeheartedly, that we get one life and we got to go out there and try to, live each day. And Gregg has done that. He's one of the few people who doesn't just say he does. And he took chances. You heard in there, that him and his wife moved down to Southern California with 3 kids and
in a trailer.
And lived in a trailer, made sacrifices, grinded it out, and just stayed hungry and stayed
humble,
creative, and went, and pushed, just kept pushing. And, it's very, that was a really cool conversation. Again, you heard in there the couple world records that he holds, the fastest solo motorcycle of the Baja 1000, 39 hours on a motorcycle.
160 feet in a diesel truck. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Just absolutely an amazing human and one of one, in many aspects. And so, Gregg, I want to tell you, thank you for coming by. Appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship. And I'm excited to go on an adventure. Let's get you out on one of these M42 adventures this year. I know we are trying, and that's the goal. So if you guys want to check out Gregg Godfrey, you can go to his social media, Gregg Godfrey, or you can go to Nitro Circus, which is the new product that he's launching, and check that out and follow him and that. So again, hope you have a great Friday. I hope that this podcast, this episode inspired you to go out there and do something, and it doesn't have to be great. You don't have to jump a semi. You don't have to ride a motorcycle for 39 hours, but just get outside. It's healthy. It will add value to your life. And Gregg is an example of that. So again, if you haven't checked out the Genesis, it's our online community. It's completely free, no strings attached. There's no credit card entering or anything like that. And we're doing amazing things in there. So if you want to get inside and talk to me, talk to our mentors, and have these conversations and these relationships and actually come out on an adventure sometime, then that is the place to find me. So you can go to m42adventures.com. Click on the Genesis and sign up. And again, it's free. So hopefully we will see you in there. We are doing great things. We got a lot planned. And catch you on the next one. Have a great weekend.